Howdy, everybody. Hope I'm coming through clear. Looks a little blurry to me. Pardon me. Technology. We're a victim of it. We're held hostage by it. How's it going? Summer's starting. It was hot today, but it's going to cool off, so summer's not there. I took a drive out to the lake today. It was packed. People are going to the lake. All right, this is the first official lecture of the course. Hopefully, you saw my welcome and you're getting adjusted to the canvas and what's going to happen. I'm going to sign the first paper, probably not till Monday, so don't worry about this week because I want you guys to get used to the course and how it's going to work. But you will be writing essays, and so be prepared for that. Someone's contacted me already wondering about extra points. We haven't even started yet, so you don't need any extra points. Yes, there's only 115 points in the class, but that's some teachers have 1,000, but it's all the same. It all comes down to you have to do well to get an A and or a B, and if you do okay, you'll get a C. If you don't do so good, you get a D, and if you don't do much good, you'll get the F. There may be a possibility for extra points, but not yet. It's too soon. You haven't even done one assignment yet. So before you want extra points, let's see how well you do in the next couple of weeks. And then if you're failing, you're going behind, you're getting behind, you're not handing your papers in, or you're doing poorly, contact me. We'll talk about extra points. Okay. Also, I'll be posting a sample of the journal reflection. That's like a diary. What we do each week in this class, from my lectures to the readings in the textbook, to the videos you're watching in modules, to your papers, and how you feel about them all. What are you getting out of it? What are you learning from it? That's the reflection part, and that's really key to doing good on that. If you don't think you'll need 10 points at the end of the thing, you probably will. And so you want to do good on that because it's an easy 10 points. You know, we're 7 weeks of course, so have 7 entries, each at least a paragraph long. That's it, folks. It's called a journal reflection. It lets me know you're participating in the class and you're paying attention. It's the only way I can judge it. Because we're not in the class together, we're not on one-to-one. And so, but even when I do conduct classes in the classroom, I want the journal too, because it's a discipline to write down what we do each week. So it sticks with you. So it's not going in one ear and out the other. This stuff's important to the development of humankind. So it's important to you too. So please take advantage of it. Today, I'm going to talk about something that isn't in the textbook because the textbook essentially covers all the art forms that we're going to cover. But I want to talk about what's brought those art forms about. In the early 1500s, yes, folks, a long time ago, there was a turn of events in the world. Not in the Western world. The Western world, I'm talking about Europe now, not in the United States. We're barely settled here, so nothing's happening here at all, besides starting to build the U.S. Not to be yet. Anyway, but old Europe has been governed by a very strong Roman Catholic Church for centuries. Well, that's all about to change. People are starting to rebel against that because it's pretty harsh on sin and salvation, and they back it up with pretty harsh demands and pretty harsh punishments. Roman Catholic Church had their own army, folks, and they were totally willing to send it out to put down any sort of rebellion against the Holy Roman Church, which is Catholic Church. Well, there was it always takes a couple people to rebel against it, to actually stand up and and say, no, this is not right. We need to change some stuff. And one of them was a gentleman in about 1517 named Martin Luther. No, folks, not Martin Luther King, but that's probably his namesake. This is Martin Luther from 500 years ago. And he was a clergyman who wanted to have a kinder, gentler, more free thinking church. And they put him on trial for it, folks. And yes, he could have been imprisoned or even executed. Would you stand up for your beliefs if you face prison or execution? Would you? Anyway, that's how much he believed in this. And so he wrote, I'm going to show you a little documentary on him in modules today. So tune into that once I post it there, which I haven't done yet. And you'll get a little bit of a history on Martin Luther and his importance in the development of modern culture, which really starts in the Renaissance area, which is about this time. He wrote 95 theses, and it was kind of like it was a kind of a manifesto of how things should be if you follow a religious faith. And we shouldn't be punished, but we should be embraced. And if we have different ideas about sin and salvation, we shouldn't be punished for it, but we should be listened to because everybody's got a story. And so the Lutheran Church was started on Martin Luther, and that Holy Roman Church was upset. They felt he was going against, it was sacrilege. He was going against the church and God, but he wasn't going against God, folks. He was just going against a very powerful church, which was stationed in Rome at the time. And it was essentially what modern Catholicism is today. So people like Martin Luther were the forerunners of freedom of expression, freedom of thought, not following a strict dogma, but following a set of rules that allows us to be free in our thinking and not be afraid of imprisonment or damnation and control. And that was the key to it. And the church did not like that. Watch the documentary. I'll post it. In the same area in Florence, Italy, which is almost the birthplace of the Renaissance, things are starting to pop there. And when I mean that, they're starting to pop, besides some of our greatest artists were starting to paint there at that time. And one of the things that contributed to the modern world and to the thriving of the modern world was, believe it or not, folks, a sewage system. That's right. In Florence, Italy, they figured out how to get rid of waste product, and with an elaborate system underneath the street, flowing water that would flush it out into the oceans. This was a total radical idea. Up until that time, we were, should I say, pooping in public places, and there was no place to get rid of it. People were susceptible to disease, typhoid, hepatitis. People were dying young because there was simply no way to get rid of waste product. And when 1 million people live in a small confines of a city, that's a lot of waste, folks. Where's it going to go? That's what usually brings along sickness and famine in a lot of third world countries is there's inadequate plumbing. So it sounds like kind of a funny joke. Oh, plumbing. Yes, but that it it expanded our lifetime or our life. The average age in those days, if you lived to 40, that was considered old age. Um, because we were living in our own filth essentially. And the Italians in Florence, Italy came up with a sewage system that was a revolution, just like Martin Luther's revolution against the Catholic Church. And this helped start modern Renaissance quality of life that we never had before. And that was these two events that really helped start the great revolution of art and commerce, philosophy that we're still practicing to this day. The revolution started 500-600 years ago, and it was a revolution. People were scared of it. The authorities wanted to squash it down because the authorities always like to control things. And when there's another freedom of thought and another way of thinking about things, nothing's worse than someone who has a new thought or an idea. Still happening to this day. They still try to ban books in schools. They still try to ban ideas. When the Nazis were taking over Germany, they imprisoned the college professors. Yes, I would be thrown in prison, folks, because they were afraid that the college professors were expounding free thought and free ideas. And the Nazis didn't want that. They wanted to control our ideas. That's what people like Putin and Russia likes to control everybody's thoughts and ideas, and it's almost impossible, especially now that we have the internet. And so those ideas, China tries to repress freedom of thought, freedom of expression. They put people in prison, they execute people. Russia for years used to send people to Siberia. Some of our greatest writers and authors of all time, Solzhenitsyn, Chekhov, were always under the threat of house arrest for being expressing free thought and free will. The power structure in certain societies, that's a threat. So here we have Martin Luther and plumbing getting started. Then we have some painters in the Renaissance who I'm not going to really cover because in the book, I mean, they're there. You'll read about them. Famous Renaissance painters who changed the way we look at things, the way we see the world. And in early days, there was no movies, there was no literature. It was just starting. Most people didn't know how to read. Only the wealthy knew how to read because they had tutors and schools. But most common man did not know how to read, and that was another way to keeping the common man down because they didn't want you to know too much because then you would get an idea, and God forbid you get an original idea that goes against the controlling powers idea. And so this Renaissance was breaking free of all that. So through religious freedom, with being more healthy because your town now has a way to get rid of waste material, life started getting better. And then in some areas of the world, which I'll cover later, like in Amsterdam, there were in Rotterdam, there were port towns, and people from other places in the world were coming in there with goods and services, and people in Europe were starting to learn about other places in the world like Asia, Pacific Rim, because of the goods and services that were being imported into these countries. And people were seeing that there are other ways in the world, not just their small town, not just because most people didn't travel, folks. There's very little traveling. Most people stayed in their town all their lives. Their families were there, great grandparents were there, they died there, and they never left. That was all starting to change in the Renaissance. People like Van Gogh started to travel. They went outside of their safety net. They saw a different world, and they started painting that world. And that's what changed everything. So check out the documentaries. I'll post them. A couple of one on Martin Luther, maybe one on how the Renaissance got started. Check them out. Write them down in your journals. I'll talk to you guys the next day or two, and then we'll sign the first paper. And remember, this is all part of the class. I could have a quiz about this, so do pay attention. Please get the book, read the first 2 chapters, and I'll see you next time when the story of our humanities to modern times continues.